Hey everyone, ready to dive in something kind of crazy?
I'm game. What are we exploring today?
Well, we're going to deep dive into what happens when you cut out sugar for 2 weeks. Straight up, no cheating.
2 whole weeks. Okay, I'm intrigued. Where are we getting this info from?
The main source is this super interesting YouTube video by Dr. Berg. He's a chiropractor, but he goes deep into the science.
Cool. So what does he cover?
Like everything, he talks about physical changes, how your organs react, even how your mind and energy are affected.
Yeah, and it all kind of ties back to insulin resistance, which is like this underlying factor in so many health problems. It's wild.
Okay, let's jump in. One of the first things Dr. Berg mentions is, get this, your face.
Your face? Really?
Yeah, sugar can apparently make your face puffier.
Huh. I never really thought about that.
He actually shows before and after pictures of himself, and the difference is, well, it's there.
Oh, wow. Okay. I guess I could see that. But it's not just tea about looks, right?
Right. That same inflammation from sugar affects your organs, too. Dr. Berg highlights 4 main ones that see huge EE benefits when you ditch the sugar.
Okay, lay it on me. Which ones are we talking about?
Eyes, kidneys, arteries, and your brain. Like the big guns.
Wow. Okay, so sugar is basically kryptonite for our organs.
Pretty much. It can really mess them up.
So let's break it down, starting with the eyes. High blood sugar can actually damage your retina.
Wait, seriously? How does that even happen?
Well, basically, high blood sugar levels damage those tiny blood vessels in the back of your eye. It can lead to something called diabetic retinopathy.
Diabetic retinopathy, that sounds not good.
Yeah, it can lead to vision problems.
Yeah.
Scary stuff, right?
Definitely. So cutting back on sugar is basically like protecting your eyesight.
Exactly. Gives those blood vessels a break, lets them function properly.
Okay, so eyes are important. What about the kidneys? What does sugar do to those?
Same idea. The kidneys have all these tiny filters, right? And high blood sugar can damage those too.
Ugh, another delicate system sugar is messing with.
It's called diabetic nephropathy when it affects the kidneys.
Diabetic, again. So is all this only a problem if you actually have diabetes?
Well, it's more common in people with diabetes, but honestly, even if your blood sugar is just kind of borderline high, pre-diabetic, cutting back on sugar is still super smart. Protects your kidneys in the long run.
Okay, so that's eyes and kidneys. What about the arteries? Those are pretty vital too.
Yeah, sugar can damage those as well. And this is where it gets interesting because people always associate high cholesterol with heart problems, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And they blame fat. But guess what? Sugar plays a huge role in raising your bad cholesterol too.
Hold on, really? I always thought fat was the main villain in the cholesterol story.
It's a common misconception. Sugar messes with how your liver processes cholesterol, and that leads to more of the bad kind, the LDL.
Okay, I'm rethinking my whole cholesterol philosophy now. So less sugar means a healthier heart and better cholesterol levels.
2 birds, 1 stone.
Love it. All right, last but definitely not least, the brain. Dr. Berg even mentions that his mood and focus improved a lot after cutting out sugar.
Makes sense. Sugar messes with your brain chemistry, big time. All those energy spikes and crashes. It's a roller coaster.
Tell me about it.
And long term, it can even throw off the balance of those neurotransmitters in your brain, which affects everything from your mood to your sleep to your ability to focus.
Sugar really is the puppet master, isn't it? Controlling our bodies and our minds.
Pretty much.
Dr. Berg talks about sleep too. He says, water follows sugar. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's his way of explaining why eating a lot of sugar makes you pee more, especially at night. If you're waking up all the time to go to the bathroom, sugar could be the culprit.
He actually had patients getting up like 10 times a night. I can't even imagine.
It's rough. And they were able to sleep through the night once they cut back on sugar.
So it's not just the bathroom trips. Sugar actually messes with your sleep cycles and even affects your melatonin production.
Right. Melatonin is that hormone that helps you sleep.
Okay, so less sugar, better sleep. Got it. What about energy levels, though? People always worry they'll feel sluggish without sugar.
That's a legit concern. But Dr. Berg has this really good analogy to explain why that's not actually the case. He compares running on sugar to using a tiny AAA battery. You get a quick burst of energy and then poof, it's gone.
Ugh. Yeah, I know that feeling all too well. Sugar rush and then the crash.
Exactly. But when you switch to burning fat for fuel, it's like having this massive car battery powering your body. Steady, sustained energy that lasts.
Okay, so fat burning is the way to go for consistent energy, but how do we actually make that switch?
Well, that's where Dr. Berg's 3-day sugar detox comes in.
Okay, tell me everything.
He recommends cutting your carb intake to under 50 grams per day for 3 days, just to reset your body's dependence on sugar.
That sounds intense, but does it really work?
Well, to really understand why that works, I think we need to dig a little deeper into the science behind how sugar impacts our metabolism.
You know what? That's a great idea. Let's unpack that in part 2.
All right, so we're diving into the science behind sugar and metabolism. Remember that 3-day detox we mentioned?
Yep, the one where you drastically cut carbs.
Right. It all boils down to this hormone called insulin. Think of it like a key. It unlocks your cells and lets the sugar or glucose from your food get in there and be used as energy.
Okay, makes sense. Insulin helps the sugar get into the cells for energy.
Exactly. But when you eat a ton of sugar, your body's like, whoa, and pumps out a bunch of insulin to deal with it all. And if this happens all the time.
What happens? What does all that insulin do?
Well, the cells kind of get tired of it. They become resistant to insulin. Like imagine they're ignoring the doorbell because they're sick of all the visitors.
So the sugar can't get into the cells, even though there's insulin right there.
Yep, that's insulin resistance in a nutshell. So the glucose, the sugar, it just builds up in your bloodstream. And your body's like, hey, open up, pumping out even more insulin. Yeah. It's a vicious cycle.
Wow, okay. And that eventually leads to type 2 diabetes.
Right. Because all that excess sugar and insulin in your blood, it damages your blood vessels, your nerves, your organs. Not good.
So back to that 3-day detox, how does cutting carbs help with the whole insulin resistance thing?
Well, when you drastically reduce your carbs, especially the refined sugars and processed stuff, you're giving your body a much-needed break from all that insulin. And that gives the cells a chance to become sensitive to insulin again.
Like hitting the reset button.
Exactly. And honestly, people often feel a difference within those 3 days. More energy, clearer thinking.
That's encouraging. But let's be real, giving up sugar is hard.
Right.
Dr. Berg even compares it to breaking a drug addiction. Is he being a little dramatic?
Well, maybe a little.
Yeah.
But there is a real physiological component to it. Sugar can trigger those same reward pathways in the brain that drugs do, so you get cravings, even withdrawal symptoms when you try to quit.
Okay, so it's not just a matter of willpower.
Right, and that's why it's super important to approach it gradually. Find some healthy substitutes for those sugary treats and focus on eating real food, stuff packed with nutrients.
So retraining your taste buds and your brain to appreciate natural sweetness, like fruits and veggies.
Exactly. And there's so many delicious ways to do that. Think like berries with some whipped cream or a little dark chocolate with almonds. Maybe even baking with natural sweeteners like dates or honey.
Okay, those sound way better than a candy bar. So it's really about finding a new way to relate to sweetness.
Absolutely. And it's totally fine to indulge sometimes, but make it a conscious choice. Savor it. Don't just mindlessly reach for the sugar.
It's all about being mindful, not about being perfect. But what about emotional eating? When sugar is your go-to comfort food, what do?
Great point. Food can be a huge comfort, especially sweets. But it's about finding healthier ways to cope with those emotions. Exercise, nature, talking to a friend, journaling.
So you need to have a plan for those trigger moments.
Yep. And honestly, don't get discouraged if you slip up. Changing any habit takes time and effort. Be patient with yourself, focus on the progress, celebrate those small victories.
It's a journey.
Exactly. And you're not alone on this journey. There are so many resources out there, books, websites, support groups. Tons of people are choosing this healthier, sugar-free life.
It's a whole movement, and you can always talk to your doctor to get some personalized advice.
Right. Your doctor can help you create a plan that works for you.
So we've covered the why. Now, how do we actually make this sugar-free thing a reality?
That's the million-dollar question. And that's exactly what we'll be tackling in part 3.
Okay, so we're back. We've talked about why sugar is the bad guy and how it messes with us in like a million different ways.
But now the big question, how do we actually live sugar-free? Like, for real, in the real world.
Yeah, exactly. Because knowing is only half the battle, right? Actually doing it is the hard part.
Totally, especially when sugar is like everywhere.
So where do we even begin? Any tips?
Well, Dr. Berg talks about becoming a label detective. Sounds kind of cool, right?
Label detective, I like it. What does that mean exactly?
Basically, sugar hides under all these different names. It's sneaky.
Sneaky sugar. I knew it was up to no good.
Right. High fructose corn syrup, dextrose, maltose, all these fancy names, but it's still sugar.
So just looking for the word sugar isn't enough. You gotta know all the aliases.
Exactly. And it pops up in the weirdest places. Salad dressings, sauces, even bread.
I never thought about bread. That's a staple for me.
Right. So many things we don't even think of as sweet are loaded with sugar. It's crazy.
Okay, so label detective skills, check. What else can we do to set ourselves up for success?
Meal prepping is huge. Seriously.
Yeah.
Especially when you're busy and tempted to just grab whatever.
Oh, tell me about it. When I don't plan ahead, I'm doomed.
Right. If you had healthy stuff ready to go, it's so much easier to resist those sugary temptations.
Yeah, because my willpower is, well, let's just say it needs all the help it can get.
We all do. So plan those meals, have those healthy snacks ready to roll. It's like an investment in your future self.
Future me will thank me. But what about those moments when the craving hits? Really hits. What do you do then?
Well, remember those healthy substitutes we talked about? Berries and cream, dark chocolate, stuff like that.
Right. Satisfy the craving without all the sugar craziness.
Exactly. And it's okay to have a treat sometimes, but make it a mindful choice. Savor it, enjoy it, and then get back to those healthy habits.
It's about finding that balance. So it's not about being perfect. It's about making conscious choices, right?
Yep. And remember, changing your habits, it takes time, it takes effort. Don't get discouraged if you slip up. Just focus on the progress.
Progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And honestly, you don't have to do it alone. There are tons of resources out there, books, websites, even support groups. Lots of people are on the same journey.
It's a whole community. Plus, your doctor can help you come up with a plan that really works for you. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, any final thoughts, things you really want people to remember?
I think the biggest takeaway is just understanding that sugar is not your friend. Knowledge is power. And once you know how sneaky it is, how much it's hiding in our food, you can start making different choices.
Yeah, it's about taking back control of your health, starting with what you eat.
And remember, reducing sugar doesn't have to be about deprivation. It's about rediscovering real food and feeling amazing.
I love that. So ditch the sugar, find your people, and enjoy the journey.
Yes, that's the perfect way to put it.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into sugar-free living, everyone.